RTN season is upon us this weekend, and the number one question I keep getting asked is Guardian viable in the current CC meta? There are currently 4 Guardians you can play in CC. We have Bravo, Betsy, Victor, and Jarl. I'm going to go ahead and take Bravo and Betsy off of our list. I don't really think they're worth talking about. But Victor and Jarl, on the other hand, you have a real chance, if you get a little lucky here and there, to take down an RTN. Now, I don't think that either Victor or Jarl are going to dominate this RTN season, but I do think that with some luck and some things breaking your way, you could very easily bring home the gold. I've put together both my Victor and my Jarl list. We're going to break them down, and we're going to talk about what you can do to get some gold during RTN season on Guardian. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you enjoy the video. Let's start off by talking about my boy Victor. For anybody who does not know, Victor says the first time each gold you create a gold token from an effect you control, draw a card. The first time each turn you would fail to win a clash, instead you may destroy a gold token you control. If you do, put one of the revealed cards in the bottom of its owner's decks and then clash again. So we're basically able to play defense and draw cards at the same time. Aura Magus is a really good tool as it allows us to block 2 and then destroy it to reclash or for the Golden Sun, or it's just a 3-block shield. Aura Magus fits really well into our deck. Crown of Providence is probably just the best headpiece right now. For a long time, people are playing Balance of Justice. I was one of those people when it was a KO meta, but I think Crown of Providence is overall better right now as it can help us against Command and Conquers, and it can help us filter our hand if we ever need to. Tunic is pretty much an auto staple. We're playing Command and Conquer Pummel. We're playing Pummel with a lot of things, and Tunic can randomly help us out with cards like Trounce and things like that. So Tunic is just an easy auto include. It is just the best chess piece we have here for our deck. Gauntlets of Iron Will has pretty much taken over the Crater Fist slot ever since it was printed, especially now that the Hunted has come out and we have Fang in the format. I do think that Gauntlets of Iron Will is going to be better than Crater Fist, so I'm still going to stick with it, and I think it still fills its role very well here. Quick Dodge Flexors. This is our newest addition to the deck. This is a defense reaction that we can pay 1, and we can basically just move it across chain links. So if we have a deck like Syndra that wants to go super wide, we can pitch 2 blues and block 12. Or if we want to, we can pitch a blue and block 6. Even in the Guardian Mirror that is really focused around using go-again cards like Zealous Belting to gain a lot of early tempo, we can pitch a blue and use Quick Dodge Flexors as a 1-card 4 that can be divided amongst their go-again turn, which is really, really powerful for us. And so I think this is an easy replacement of Civic Steps in our deck. And then Titan's Fist, old reliable, the old 3-for-4 hammer that we use late game to either fatigue our opponents or close games out. First up is Command and Conquer. This card needs no introduction, and I feel like I say that in every video, but it really doesn't. This is just the best generic 2-for-6 staple that finds its way into every deck, and the fact that we're playing Pummel that works really well with a lot of other cards in our deck, Command and Conquer Pummel is just one of the best things you can be doing to gain tempo and really disrupt your opponent. Enlighten Strike is a very good go-again card, but in Victor, we only play 33 blues, so we really get into some hands where we might have all reds. It doesn't happen very often, but E-Strike is a very good way to generate go-again, and it also bails us out of having all red hands, so E-Strike is just a great fit into the deck. Pummel is another card that needs no introduction. If you're pummeling a Command and Conquer or a Spinal Crush, you're getting a ton of value by making your opponent discard and getting the on-hit or crush effect of the card that you attacked with. Spinal Crush has been a long-time Guardian staple. Just being able to pitch 2 cards and throw Spinal Crush to easily force 2 cards out of your opponent's hand or forcing them to gain extra action points can go a long way. Spinal Crush has always been an auto-include in Victor, and it probably always will be. Next up are 2 cards that really fit into Victor's game plan. Test of Strength is a generic block 4, and when this defends, we clash with the attacking hero and the winner generates a gold. This card allows us to block and then try to generate gold and draw extra cards for defense. This lets us block for quite a bit and then still try to draw into some cards to help us either play offense or continue to block throughout the course of the turn. Trounce is a majestic version of this. This is a Guardian block and it only blocks for 3, but you make a gold, a might, and a vigor if you win 2 clashes with this card. So Trounce fits in really well. It's a great card and it helps fuel our game plan and try to put us in the front foot. The Golden Sun is an excellent closer. Somebody called this like a better Macho Grande, and then I also heard somebody call this a poor man's Macho Grande, so take that how you want. I really like the Golden Sun. This being basically like a 2-card 10 with Tunic is extremely powerful, can really help us close games, or it's just a ton of damage that we can hit our opponent with to try and put us on the front foot and trying to close out games early. As we continue to look at the rest of our deck here, first up, we have Boulder Drop in our blue slot. This card has really impressed me. For the longest time, Guardians just played Buckling Blow in this slot, but Boulder Drop with the Tolarian Community College kit has been a massive upgrade. This is a 2-card 5 that forces a card out of your opponent's hand, either by forcing them to block or forcing them to put a card back on top of their deck, whatever they deem more important. And I think this card does a really great job, and I like it a bunch. Chokeslam is also a really, really good card. I like blue Chokeslam a lot. Now, it does fill the like 3-block blue turn on Titan's Fist or a Nothos like role that we were looking to play here, but I actually really like blue Chokeslam. There's a lot of matchups where things are looking to not gain power, so this can be a really good blue late game as we look to close out the game. Cranial Crush prevents our opponents from drawing cards, and it's also a 3-card 8. Having a 3-card 8 that you can pitch stack for second cycle is extremely powerful and can really line up with a lot of good hands that you need for second cycle to continue to stay on the front foot or to try and gain tempo. Plus, there's some random decks that are just trying to draw cards, and Cranial Crush prevents them from doing that. Debilitate's probably one of our worst crush effects here. -2 is, not all that. It's not all that in a bag of chips, but -2 can be very relevant, and this is still a good blue, so we like having it in the deck. Disable is a much worse version of like Command and Conquer, but this card still fills the role, and I think at blue works with what we're trying to accomplish, so I don't hate having this in our deck. Blue Disable fits in pretty well with what we want to be doing. Macho Grande is a 3-card 8, basically, if you have Tunic available to you. This card is great to pitch and to try to really close out games with. I actually really like this card a lot. I know a couple of people who back in the day played Reds. It's a little out there for me, but I think in this current meta, just having blues is good as a good pitch stack card, and it sets up for a late game finish. Rouse the Ancients is an interesting card to have in our deck because in the main deck, it doesn't really give us the opportunity to win clashes unless we're playing against like a warrior or something with a lot of non-attack actions. So Rouse pretty much loses clashes a lot, but in matchups against like Enigma or New that we need to apply pressure against, having Rouse the Ancients is really good in our main deck, like, so many cards in our blue slots that we're using, because it helps us have more go again available, and it opens up sideboard slots for us, which help us shore up other matchups. So it's a little bit of a non-bow when it comes to clashing, but Rouse the Ancients does a very important job, and I think it fits really well. Thunderquake is a really good turn 0 card. You can pitch a couple of cards to heave this card and then filter, and then you can throw a 2-card 8 at them on the following turn, which is really nice. Or it also just works out as a 3-card 8 late in the game when you're trying to force cards out of your opponent's hand. Thunk is literally only in the deck because it's a popper and it has a cool clash effect. Against some other heroes, if we reveal a Thunk, we can get extra might tokens out of this, and it can give us a lot of value as we're trying to attack them and really put them behind. Visit Goldmane Estate has probably been one of my favorite expansion cards like ever. This card is absolutely insane. This card generating gold and might tokens is really powerful, and against decks like Enigma and New, where we're trying to apply a lot of pressure and really put them on the back foot and like keep the board clear against Enigma, Visit Goldmane Estate really helps us out and really fuels our game plan and puts us up in a positive light here. Wallop is honestly probably one of the worst blues in our deck, but it does generate a Vigor, which can be really good in certain situations. Plus, it's just a blue block 3 that turns on Titan's Fist, so it fits into the deck reasonably well. Looking at our sideboard here, I have 3 Erase Face. I really like Erase Face into a lot of... It's really good into Jarl. It's really good into Florian. It's really good into Aurora. It's really good into Syndra. Turning off all of these talented class hero types is really solid, and I think Erase Face is looking better than it ever has. So having 3 of this in the sideboard feels like an easy auto-include. 3 copies of Outmuscle is really just to generate extra go again. There's a lot of matchups you've heard me mention Enigma and New so far where we want to apply a lot of pressure to our opponents, and Outmuscle really helps us do this by just being a good go again card. Unfortunately, all of our go again cards only block for 2, which kind of sucks, but still, I think Outmuscle fits really well into this slot, and there's no world I'm cutting it when Enigma is still in the metagame and doing as well as she is. Sink Below. All right, this is going to be an interesting conversation to have. Shelter from the Storm could also fit into this slot. I have actively made the decision to leave Sink Below in the sideboard of this deck because I think that in Victor, it is better to let us filter than I would have it as Shelter from the Storm. Now, Shelter from the Storm can discard, and we have some really cool interactions there, and it still blocks 4, but I think the filter on Sink Below specifically in the Victor deck does better, and so for the time being, I'm going to leave Sink Below in the sideboard of my deck. The Weakest Link has play into a lot of matchups. Dashio, which I think finished 13th at the Calling in Memphis this past weekend. It's really good into Aurora. It can be really good into Acilio. There's a lot of matchups here where the Weakest Link does get a lot of value, so I really like having this in the sideboard. I also really like Zealous Belting for the go again. Most of our blues are 6 or better, so it's very easy for us to pitch a blue and to throw Zealous Belting with go again into an Anothos or into a Command and Conquer or into anything. So we have a lot of really good plays with Zealous Belting, and this is again for matchups where we're looking to apply a ton of pressure. Righteous Cleansing is not a card that sees a ton of play, but I actually really like this. New has been one of the more popular decks that I've seen over the past few weeks between Battle Hardened Atlanta and Memphis this past weekend. Righteous Cleansing is really good against New. It is a yellow that they can't play against us, and it also gives us a lot of value because it comes in for 10 and it forces them to block. Now, the New deck blocks pretty well, and even though against New we're bringing in a lot of our go again cards, there will be off turns, and having a Righteous Cleansing to throw at them can really go a long way and get us a lot of value. So I think this card fits really well into the side. I've considered having a third just to kind of make my matchup a little bit better into New, but I really like all of my other cards, so I'm probably going to leave it as a 2-of for now. And then we have Anothos in the sideboard. Anothos is just the best hammer we have here. If we go Zealous Belting, or if we throw an Outmuscle, then we can pitch another blue and throw Anothos, which is great value for us. Being able to just go 6 into 6 or 5 into 6, or with Goldman Estate, sometimes you end up going 9 into 6. So you can get a lot of value with Anothos. And in matchups where you need to apply a ton of pressure, Anothos fits very well. There are a lot of matchups where you want an extra gold pretty early on that you're starting with Anothos. Having Crown of Dominion and Anothos to start the game is really good because against some other decks who are still running 6s or 7s even, this gives us a chance to reclash or to really have that extra gold early on for insurance or to apply more pressure with. It sets up Goldmane Estate faster. We have multiple reasons that we can use this way, but Crown of Dominion is going to be really helpful into some of the matchups where we need that extra gold early on. And then I'm currently only running AB1. I'm running Null Room Boots. I only have AB1. I know that Kano just did really well at the Calling this past weekend. If you're going to an RTN where you're playing against a Kano who really knows what they're doing, you could have AB3 and it won't matter because they're just going to kill you no matter what. If you're playing at an RTN where you have a Kano who's kind of knows what's going on, but maybe they don't really understand what's going on, you could just jam in Null Rune Headpiece and Null Rune Arms and just call it a day and try to go that route. I would probably cut the 2 Righteous Cleansing if I was going to make that play. It also depends on what you have in your current metagame. Maybe you want to cut a couple of Weakest Links because there's not a lot of Auroras or Dios, and then you could play some other Null Rune pieces, but if you're playing against a good Kano, it's really not worth it, and I felt like the other cards helped us into different matchups, so that's kind of why we only have AB1 here. Although Victor and Jarl are both Guardians, they play very differently, and they have very different roles in each matchup they look into. So now let's take a look at the Jarl deck and talk about some of our game plans and why we're running each card. Let's start off by talking about my boy Jarl. Jarl has the essence of Earth and Ice, which means we can play both Ice and Earth cards in our deck, which is really powerful for us. Whenever you play an ice card, create a frostbite token in an opponent's exposed head, chest, arms, or leg zone. When we start the game, we don't really have a hero power, which means we're looking to destroy equipment as quickly as possible, either through cards like Frozen to Death or by actually forcing our opponent to block and getting their equipment out of the way. This goes a long way for us and can make the late game for our opponent very, very difficult when we're willing to give them frostbites through that second cycle portion of the game. Crown of Providence is, again, just an easy add. It protects our arsenal. It's a card to filter. It just fits really well with what we're trying to do. Crown of Providence is an easy include into our deck. Tunic doesn't really need an introduction. It works with Pummel. It gives us resources when we need it. I really like Tunic. It feels like the best inclusion into our deck for what we're trying to do here. Gauntlets of the Boreal Domain, even though we're not playing Mangles in our deck, so we can't really get the Dominate or the +2, this is an Earth Ice Guardian equipment, which means we can block 3 pretty early, and then we can get it into our graveyard so that we can use it to decompose with, which will go a long way in helping us set up all of our decompose and getting the plus value off of cards like Felling of the Crown or Plow Under. So Gauntlets of the Boreal Domain is an easy include in our arm slot here. Quick Dodge Flexors, again, this card's just too good. We're playing over 30 blues. Why would we not play this card? Against all the Go Wide decks, it blocks really easily. Against the Guardian Mirror, who's looking to generate Go again against us, this fits really well. I like Quick Dodge Flexors a lot, and I think that this is a great leg piece. It's a great addition to the deck, and it fits really well. Redwood Hammer has become more and more popular over the last few weeks. But in Atlanta 4 weeks ago, I was having this conversation with someone about how Redwood Hammer is actually not bad. And to see it doing well at the big stage was like, I think it was really good. I think it opened a lot of people's eyes. Michael Hamilton finished day 1 of the CC calling in Memphis 5-2, playing Redwood Hammer Jarl. And so I think that kind of put it on the forefront of everybody's mind. But Redwood Hammer is great, and it just fits really well into the deck. Stalagmite, if you played Oldham, you know how amazing this card can be. Blocking and giving a Frostbite generates so much value, especially against all of these decks that are so resource light. We saw Brody win the calling in Memphis, the CC calling in Memphis, with like basically an all red deck. Stalagmite can go a long way at really hurting their turns and giving us the room that we need to be able to get into the driver's seat. Command and Conquer, again, needs no introductions, just a value 2 for 6. It's probably one of the best generics in the game. Absolutely love this card. It fits into Jarl super well. Felling of the Crown. Now, I really like these Rosetta Majestics because I think that they fit really well into Jarl, and the whole Earth, in essence of Earth, text is like really what these were designed for. Being able to throw a 2-card 8 at your opponent, which is like Bullander numbers, which is cool, but also taking a card from their hand, it's absolutely crazy. Can you imagine how broken Icelander would have been if we would have been able to strip cards from their hand while throwing 8 at them? Absolutely nutty. Felling of the Crown is a great card. I love it in this deck. It works super well. Oakenold. If you've never hit your opponent with a fused Oakenold, take this as your sign. Just do it once. Thank me later. This card's absolutely crazy. A 2-card 9 that we can like then arsenal our fuse target with is extremely powerful. Oakenold's insane. Just trust me. This card's really good. If you haven't played it yet, you're gonna like it. Pummel fits really well into our deck because we're adding disruption. It also gives us room in other matchups to be able to like apply pressure and try to keep the board clear against decks like Enigma. It also helps us disrupt our opponents like New, which are traditionally matchups that Guardian struggles into. So Pummel really fills that role really well at trying to play offense and apply more pressure. Rootbound Carapace has the decompose mechanic on it, which is great. We are on Plow Under and Felling of the Crown, so being able to get those Earth cards into our banish zone is really powerful for us. I like Rootbound Carapace a lot. It's a good defense reaction, and it fuels our game plan. Why wouldn't we be on 3 of it? Spinal Crush has been a Guardian staple since the beginning of time. This card's absolutely crazy. It's literally been around since Welcome to Wraith. Being able to pitch 2 cards and throw Spinal Crush is a great disruption piece. If you can line up Tunic and Pummel with it, it's even better. As like, this card's just insane. There's a lot of value here. Spinal Crush will pretty much always be in every Guardian deck that I play. Plow Under is where I get a little bit of a different opinion from most. I actually don't like this card a ton, and hear me out for just a second. When I started playing this card, I did not like this card at all. It felt incredibly awkward, and every time I was playing against Plow Under, when my opponent would throw a Plow Under at me, I would go, that's it? Plow Under? I'd be like, cool, like deal, fine. So I think this card is okay, but I think that it's just good enough for us to play. It is a 3-block Earth card. It's also yellow for resources if we need it to. We can pitch it to Redwood Hammer with another card, or Tunic at the worst case. I think it's good enough to play, though. You can also pummel it off of the Tunic counter, which I think gets a lot of value. This is a great card to arsenal at the end of the turn, and then on the following turn, you can block with 2 or 3 cards, and then you can pitch a card to throw the Plow Under and really get a lot of value clearing out your opponent's arsenal. So I'm not a huge fan of this card, but I think it just fits the bill enough for us to play it in our Jarl deck. Looking at the rest of our deck here, we have Winter's Bite. We have 3 blues and 2 yellows. This is actually something I got from the Hamilton deck list. I was originally just on blues, but I think the 2 yellows is a really good addition. They can be resources if we need them to throw a Spinal Crush. They can be resources for a pummel. They're also really solid because it plays around Tunic, and late game after we've destroyed some equipment, this takes a card from your opponent's hand and gives them a Frostbite, which is exactly what we want to be doing with it. I think the yellows fit really well into this deck, and I really like 2. It fits very cleanly. Autumn's Touch pitches to Redwood Hammer. It's a blue 3-block, and it fuels our Decompose plan. This doesn't really, there's not much more to it. This one's pretty on the nose. Canopy Shelter is actually kind of cool. I really like the idea of playing like Victor-esque cards, and I know that it's not really that way, but let me explain. This card blocks for 2 and creates a Might token. This allows us to play defense and offense at the same time. Being able to block with Canopy Shelter and then throw Spinal Crush for 10 or throw Command and Conquer for 7 gets a lot of value. Because if Command and Conquer comes across for 7, you're no longer forcing 2 cards out of your opponent's hand if they want to protect their arsenal. It's 2 cards and an equipment. It's 3 cards from hand. Like, this card goes a long way, and I think Canopy Shelter is an easy include in the deck because of how it plays both defense and offense for us. Because one of the important things about Jarl is very, very, very rarely are we looking to fatigue. We want to be playing offense more than most people realize. Channel Lake Frigid, again, like all of these ice cards just fit so well into the disruption category. I like Channel Lake Frigid a lot against these, like, very light resource decks. This card's going to be an absolute powerhouse in Jarl here going into RTN season. Although I think people will shape up a little bit and add some blues to their deck. I think that Channel Lake Frigid is a great card, and it fits really well with what we're trying to do in the deck here. Channel Mail Eisen is a blue ice 3-block. The 3-block value is really good. I also like that this can close out games for you if you need it to. Late in the game, you can actually play this, give your opponent a Frostbite, and then you can pitch another ice card to, like, the hammer per se, and then they have to, they have 1 or 2 Frostbites, and that could be all the damage you need to close out the game and win from there. Because it's loss of life, they don't even really have a chance to get rid of the Frostbites. Channel Mail Eisen is really good and fits really well into the deck. Crumble to Eternity is probably my new favorite card. I know that this came out with the Jarl Armory deck, but I really like this card a lot. It just fits super well. It is a blue 3-block. It is ice and earth, which is insane. It is a 1-card fused with Oakenold. It pitches to Redwood Hammer. It destroys equipment. Well, destroys equipment. It gives equipment -1 counters early on in the game. And on top of that, it gives our next attack Dominate. Why would we not love this card? Crumble to Eternity is an absolute all-star, and I love this card in our deck. Frozen to Death is a card that I think a lot of people aren't on, actually. I saw a lot of people playing blue Winter's Grasp to have an extra attack. I like Frozen to Death because it is a blue against new that does absolutely nothing. This card does nothing against us when they're playing new, and this is a blue that can easily get banished. So I think this card fits really well. It also helps us destroy our opponent's equipment, like Grasp of the Arknight per se. So I think this fits really well into the deck at a blue 3-block. And if you have a really awkward hand, you can always just destroy some equipment and arsenal your Winter's Bite or whatever ice card you fused with. So Frozen to Death, I think, is just a little bit better than Winter's Grasp when we're looking at it here. Blue Fruits of the Forest, absolutely insane. Love this card. It's great. Gain 2 life, attack for 5. It's an earth pitch for Redwood Hammer. It fuses with Oakenold. It absolutely sets up our Decompose game plan. It's a great card. Why would we not play it? Being able to gain 2 life at instant speed is very valuable. Pulse of Eisenloft is a card that's been around for a long time. This defense reaction goes a long way. It can help us block pretty wide. You can actually turn a lot of your 3-block cards into 4-block cards, which is kind of cool. You turn some of your 2 blocks into 3 blocks. Pulse of Eisenloft is a great card. It can also generate frostbites at instant speed if we have destroyed equipment. Because this is an ice earth defense reaction, it double fuses with Oakenold for 1 card, and it can generate frostbites at instant speed. So we get a little bit of Icelander-esque feel here. So Tomorrow is a phenomenal card. This allows us to arsenal this. We can then pitch a card to play this, draw a card off the top of our deck, and put Oakenold back on the bottom of our deck. There will be games where you can pair So Tomorrow and Oakenold together, and you'll be able to play like 4 to 6 copies of Oakenold in one game. I don't know what else I need to say about this card. This card's insane. I think this is an easy 3 of. Some people are playing 2 to sub in more 2 blocks, but since we're on sub in more 3 blocks. But since we're on Redwood Hammer, I like having this as a 3 of. Plus, just throwing more Oakenolds is absolutely bonkers, so I love this card. Normally, Terra Sunder is a card that I stay away from in the current meta. It scares me because New is a real deck. New is one of the more popular decks in the metagame right now. I think there was one in top 8 of the Battle Hardened. I think Lucas was on one. I know Lucas was at least one. So normally, Terra Sunder is a card that scares me, but there's not any like blue Guardian attacks in our deck. Like, if you look at our list here, there's not any blue Guardian attacks here that we're looking at. Terra Sunder specifically says Guardian, which means they can't throw Spinal Crush at us. Like, they can't do anything. They can't throw Oakenold at us, so there's no blue Guardian attacks, which means even if New banishes the Terra Sunder, they're not going to get any value out of it. And because of that, it works really well in Jarl and can actually set us up for some solid disruption later in the game when we need it. Because you can just pitch a blue to play Terra Sunder and then pitch another card to play Oakenold. It's a like makeshift Oakenold here, but it's kind of cool. I think Terra Sunder fits really well into the deck, even though normally I'm skeptical of it because of New. Looking at our sideboard here, I know our sideboard is where I'm going to get some unpopular opinions. We're probably going to get some boos here. We're going to go ahead and start with the obvious one. I am on Count Your Blessings. I actually had a conversation with Ed Knight this past weekend, and we were talking about it's necessary for the deck, even if we don't like the card. I do not like Count Your Blessings. I don't like the card. I don't really like the idea behind it. It is a good card, though. It serves an important role in the deck. There are some decks that you actually just want to try and fatigue, and Count Your Blessings is a good way to just gain. I think it's like 30 life or something like that. I can't remember. And you're just able to stay alive for longer, and it gives you a better chance at fatiguing your opponents. So I really think that Count Your Blessings is a necessary evil in this deck. Arctic Incarceration at red is going to be absolutely insane. A lot of people are going to show up to week 1 of RTN season playing Brody's List with 3 blues in it. Arctic Incarceration will end a turn. Literally just end a turn. Even if you haven't destroyed an equipment piece, 3 Frostbites will literally force them into pitching 3 cards to throw a 0 for 3. Like, this card's insane. This card is an absolute powerhouse, and I love having it in the sideboard. Now, I know that we were running Sink Below and Victor, but I like Shelter from the Storm better. We could use Sink Below to filter in our Jarl list, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that Shelter from the Storm actually gets more value here because we're not trying to play as much offense. Victor is a deck that plays defense to play more offense. Victor wins by playing a ton of offense. Jarl has potential to actually fatigue you and block a lot and look for their big turns. Shelter from the Storm helps us do that more here, and I like this card in the sideboard over Sink Below of Jarl. Blizzard. This is basically another red Arctic Incarceration. When your Cinder opponent throws like a 1 for 4 at you and they like pitch a red to do so, you just Blizzard that thing and stare at them. They possibly have a blue, but if you've destroyed some equipment, you're getting the Icelander feel of actually trying to slow them down and giving them a Frostbite. I think Blizzard is absolutely insane, and it fits really well into our sideboard. I have Sledge. Sledge of Anvilheim just fits really well with our like longer fatigue game plan. Sledge is a really good card. It fits well into the deck, and it gives us that like late game power to really either try and fatigue opponents or against the Guardian Mirror. It helps us just like continue to apply pressure to where Redwood Hammer is only a 1-card 4. We can actually use Sledge as a 2-card 6, or it can be a 1-card 6 when you pair it with Tunic. All-in Ice Cap is one that I know I said I wasn't very big on at the beginning of the Jarl deck being like shown to us. With all of the low resource decks, I think All-in Ice Cap actually has a really sweet place in the metagame. You can actually block with All-in Ice Cap and your Gauntlets of Boreal Domain and give your opponent a Frostbite. That's a really cool interaction. It doesn't even cost you cards from hand, which is really neat. I like this card a lot. It fits well into the deck, and I think All-in Ice Cap is going to be really good through RTN season, at minimum for the first 1 to 2 weeks of RTN season. After people adjust, you may have to look at it, but I think it fits really well into our deck. I'm running Null Rune Boots, Gloves, and Hood. Okay, in Victor, I only have Null Rune Boots because I said that if your opponent is going to... if your opponent is playing Kano and they know what they're doing, you can't stop it. It's the same thing here. If we're playing AB3 and like we're playing our Count Your Blessings, if your opponent truly knows what they're doing on Kano, and I mean, I'm talking like they are like one of the best Kano players, you cannot stop it. It just doesn't matter. Their hands have to be terrible for it to happen. If you are playing Count Your Blessings and you're playing AB3 into a Kano that just picked up the deck because it did well at the last calling here, you can get them. That is the reason for playing AB3 and running Count Your Blessings, because I absolutely believe that we can stop an average Kano player with this game plan. So that's why I've included AB3 in this list and not in our other list. Also, we had some other cards in our Victor deck that I think make other matchups better that are a little bit worse that aren't necessarily so here. But that's the reason for AB3. You can beat an average to bad Kano with Count Your Blessings and AB3 in the deck. Be sure to try out both my Jarl and my Victor deck list and let me know what you think in the comments down below. You can find both of those deck lists in the video description below. And don't forget, if you're a YouTube member or a Twitch subscriber, you can link that platform to the Discord to unlock a special section just for you where you can find articles I write about events, complete deck lists with matchup guides, and more. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy, guys.